Rich man abandons his wife and daughter. 15 years later, he meets his daughter at the airport and is shocked to discover that Denver International Airport buzzed with activity on that summer afternoon. Emma Wilson, a 25-year-old security officer, walked briskly through the terminal, her uniform spotless and her gaze sharp. Her radio crackled with an urgent call. "Officer Wilson, we've got a situation at Gate 23. Unruly passenger. I need you to step in." Emma quickly responded and headed to the location. As she approached, she saw a middle-aged man wildly gesturing at the desk attendant. The smell of alcohol wafted from him. "Sir, I need you to calm down," Emma said firmly, positioning herself between the man and the frightened attendant. The man turned to Emma, his eyes bloodshot and his voice slurred. "You don't understand. I need to catch this flight. It's a matter of life and death." Emma kept her composure, but something about his face unsettled her. There was a familiarity she couldn't place. "Sir, I understand you're frustrated, but I can't allow you to disturb the other passengers. Please come with me, and we can discuss this privately." The man backed away, stumbling slightly. "No, you don't get it. I need to see my daughter." The words hit Emma like a punch to the stomach. For a brief moment, she saw flashes of a long-buried memory, a man walking away, a door closing, a child's tears. She shook her head, pushing the memories aside. "Sir, this is your last chance. Come with me peacefully, or I'll have to call for backup," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly. The man stepped forward, his hand reaching out as if to touch her. "You don't understand. Before he could finish, Liam, a young flight attendant, stepped in. "Hey, buddy, I think that's enough, right? Let's take a walk and cool off." Emma shot Liam a grateful look as he gently guided the man away. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. "Are you okay, Emma?" the desk attendant asked, still shaken. Emma nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, everything's under control. Thank you for alerting us." As she watched Liam lead the man away, Emma couldn't help but notice how the stranger kept glancing over his shoulder at her, his eyes filled with an emotion she couldn't decipher. The rest of her shift passed in a blur, but Emma couldn't shake the incident from her mind. There was something about that man, something in his words and in his eyes, that disturbed her deeply. At the end of the day, as she prepared to leave, Liam found her in the locker room. "Hey, Emma, that guy from earlier, he ended up getting detained. He was completely drunk." Emma nodded, thankful for the update. "Thanks for stepping in, Liam. You showed up just in time." Liam smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Anytime. You seemed really shaken up. Are you okay?" Emma hesitated for a moment. "Yeah, I just had this strange feeling, like I knew him from somewhere." Liam looked at her with concern. "Well, if you ever need to talk, I'm here." Emma forced a smile. "Thanks, Liam. I'll be fine." But as she left the airport that night, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the man's final words as he was led away. "I just wanted a chance to explain, to ask for forgiveness." The next morning, Emma arrived at the airport with deep, dark circles under her eyes. She had barely slept, her mind filled with confusing memories and unanswered questions. As she entered the security room, she was greeted by applause from her colleagues. "Great job yesterday, Wilson," her supervisor exclaimed, handing her a coffee. "You handled that drunk like a pro." Emma forced a smile, muttering a thank you. She wanted to share her suspicions, the strange familiarity she had felt, but the words got stuck in her throat. How could she explain something she didn't even understand? Throughout the day, Emma tried to focus on her tasks, but her mind kept drifting back to the incident. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that man's face, heard his shaky voice begging to see his daughter. During her lunch break, Emma decided to take a walk through the terminal to clear her head. As she turned a corner, she heard muffled voices coming from a storage room. Curious, she quietly approached. "Frank, we can't keep doing this," whispered a female voice that Emma recognized as Melissa, one of the flight attendants. "Shh, it'll be fine," replied a male voice that Emma instantly identified as Frank, her boss. "No one's going to find out." Emma froze, her heart racing. She knew she should leave, but her feet felt glued to the floor. Through the slightly open door, she caught a glimpse of Frank and Melissa in an intimate embrace. Feeling like an intruder, Emma finally managed to walk away, her mind spinning with this new information. Frank was married to Claire, a lovely woman Emma considered a friend. How could he do this? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Emma avoided Frank whenever she could, fearing that her face might betray what she knew. That evening, as she prepared to leave, she received a message from Claire asking if they could meet at a nearby cafe. Claire was already there when Emma arrived, absent-mindedly stirring a cup of tea. Her usually cheerful face was tense and worried. "Emma, thank you for coming," Claire said, forcing a smile. I needed to talk to someone." Emma sat down, feeling a pang of guilt. "What's going on, Claire?" Claire took a deep breath, tears shining in her eyes. "It's Frank. I think he's cheating on me." The words hit Emma like a punch to the gut. She knew she should tell Claire what she had seen, but something stopped her. How could she break Claire's heart like that? "Why do you think that?" Emma asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Claire started listing a series of suspicious behavior secret phone calls, unexplained overtime, mood swings. Emma listened, her internal conflict growing with each word. "I don't know what to do, Emma," Claire concluded, wiping away a tear. "I love Frank, but I can't keep living like this." Emma reached out, squeezing Claire's hand. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Maybe you should talk to Frank?" Claire nodded, grateful for the support. As she headed home, Emma felt torn. Her loyalty to Claire clashed with her fear of losing her job if she confronted Frank. The next day, Emma tried to act normal, but every time she saw Frank, she felt a wave of anger and disappointment. During a team meeting, their eyes met, and Emma saw something shift in Frank's expression. He knew that she knew. At the end of the day, just as Emma was about to leave, Frank called her into his office. "Emma, can we talk privately tomorrow?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes intense. Emma felt a knot in her stomach. "Sure, boss. Is there a problem?" Frank forced a smile. No. I just want to go over a few things about your performance." Emma nodded, knowing this conversation would be about much more than her performance. As she left the office, her mind was racing. What did Frank want? Was he going to threaten her? Bribe her? And in the midst of all this chaos, the image of the drunk man from the previous day resurfaced in her mind. Two situations, seemingly unrelated, but both making Emma question everything she thought she knew about the people around her. Emma walked into Frank's office the next morning, her stomach in knots. Frank smiled, gesturing to the chair in front of him. "Emma, you've been an exemplary employee," Frank began, his tone oddly friendly. "In fact, I'm considering you for a promotion." Emma blinked, surprised. "A promotion?" Frank nodded, leaning forward. "Yes, but before that, we need to discuss something delicate. You're a discreet person, aren't you, Emma?" Emma's heart raced. She knew exactly where this conversation was heading. "I imagine you might have seen or heard something that you could have misunderstood," Frank continued, his smile not reaching his eyes. It would be a shame if a misunderstanding affected your promising career. Emma felt a wave of anger. Are you threatening me, Frank? Threatening? No, no, Frank laughed, but his gaze was cold. I'm offering an opportunity, discretion for progress. Simple as that. Emma stood up, trembling with anger. I'll think about it, she said, quickly leaving the office. Disturbed by the conversation with Frank, Emma decided to focus on something she could control. She still couldn't get the man from the incident at the gate out of her mind. Taking advantage of a quiet moment, she accessed the passenger database. Typing in the date and flight, Emma found the name Jack Wilson. Her heart stopped. Wilson, her last name. With trembling hands, she searched further. The information she found left her stunned. Jack Wilson, 55 years old, resident of Chicago, divorced, one daughter. Emma felt her world spin. It was him, her father, the man who had abandoned her 15 years ago. Quickly printing out the information, Emma rushed out, nearly bumping into Liam. Whoa, careful! Liam caught her by the shoulders, his smile turning to concern as he saw her face. Emma, what's wrong? Emma hesitated, then decided she needed to tell someone. Liam, can I talk to you? In private? They found a quiet corner in the terminal. With a trembling voice, Emma told Liam everything about Jack, about Frank, about how she felt trapped. Liam listened attentively, his face a mix of shock and sympathy. When Emma finished, he took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. Emma, this is wow. I'm here for you, okay? No matter what happens. Emma felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Liam. I don't know what to do about any of this. Well, let's take it one step at a time, Liam said. First, Frank, what he's doing is wrong and illegal. You shouldn't feel pressured to stay silent. Emma nodded, feeling a little stronger with Liam's support. As for your father, Liam continued, that's more complicated. Do you want to see him? Emma bit her lip. I don't know. Part of me wants to scream at him, demand answers. Another part wants to pretend this never happened. Maybe you should try talking to him, Liam suggested gently, at least for some closure. Emma reluctantly agreed. Using the information she had printed, she made some calls. What she discovered left her in shock. Liam, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Jack is in the hospital. He's dying. Liam hugged her, allowing Emma to finally let go of the tears she had been holding back. What do you want to do? Liam asked gently. Emma pulled away, wiping her eyes. I need to see him. I need to know why. Liam nodded. Do you want me to go with you? Emma gave him a weak smile. No, this is something I need to do alone. But thank you, Liam, for everything. As she prepared to leave, Emma felt torn between fear and determination. She didn't know what to expect from this encounter, but she knew she needed answers. On the way to the hospital, Emma reflected on how her life had been turned upside down in just a few days. The father she thought she'd never see again was back, sick and possibly dying. Her boss was blackmailing her to cover up an affair. And in the midst of it all, an unexpected friendship with Liam was blossoming. Arriving at the hospital, Emma stopped at the reception desk, her heart pounding. I'm here to see Jack Wilson, she said, her voice firmer than she felt. As she followed the nurse down the hallway, Emma tried to brace herself for what she was about to face. 15 years of unanswered questions, of hurt and pent-up anger, all about to come to the surface. The nurse stopped in front of a room. He's in here, she said gently. Would you like me to let him know you're here? Emma shook her head. No, I'll just go in. Emma walked into the hospital room, her heart pounding. Jack lay on the bed, looking frail and much older than his 55 years. When he saw her, his eyes widened. This time, without the influence of alcohol, he immediately recognized his daughter, even though he hadn't seen her in years, because she looked just like his ex-wife, Sarah. "Emma?" His voice was a hoarse whisper. "Is it really you?" Emma stood still, unable to move. She hadn't expected her father to recognize her so quickly. Years of repressed emotions threatened to overflow. "Yes, it's me," she finally managed to say. Jack tried to sit up, groaning in pain. "I can't believe it. I finally found you." "I didn't come for you," Emma said, her voice cold. "I came for me, and I never left this town. If you wanted to find me, you just had to go to the same airport where you abandoned us. Now, I need answers." Jack said, "I understand. You deserve explanations." Emma stepped closer to the bed, her fists clenched. "Why did you leave us? How could you just walk away?" Jack closed his eyes, the pain evident on his face. "Emma, I was drowning in debt. Dangerous people were after me. I thought I was protecting you by disappearing." "Protecting us?" Emma laughed bitterly. "Do you know what your protection did to us? Mom had to work 2 jobs. I grew up without a father." Jack reached out a trembling hand toward Emma, but she stepped back. "I know I made a terrible mistake. Not a day goes by that I don't regret it." Emma felt hot tears streaming down her face. 15 years, Dad. 15 years without a word, a call, nothing. "I wanted to come back so many times," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "But the more time passed, the harder it became. And then I got sick." Emma looked at him, noticing for the first time the tubes and monitors around him. "What's wrong with you?" "Terminal cancer," Jack replied simply. "The doctors say I have only a few months left." Silence fell over the room. Emma sat in the chair beside the bed, feeling drained. "Why did you come to the airport?" Jack smiled sadly. "I wanted to see you one last time, to ask for forgiveness, if I could." Emma shook her head, confused. "How did you know where to find me?" "I searched for you for years," Jack admitted. "When I finally found you, I didn't have the courage to approach. But with time running out," Emma stood up abruptly. "I need to go. It's too much." Jack called out to her as she reached the door. "Emma, please. I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk more?" Emma stopped, not turning around. "Maybe. I don't know. I need to think." Leaving the hospital, Emma felt emotionally drained. Her phone rang. It was work. Sighing, she answered. Back at the airport, Emma found herself in a chaotic situation. Frank was barking orders, his face red with anger. "Wilson, where have you been? We've got a situation here." Emma noticed Melissa, Frank's mistress, standing nervously in the corner. Frank seemed to be making erratic decisions, yelling at employees and ignoring safety protocols. "Frank," Emma tried to intervene. "Maybe we should follow standard procedure here." Frank turned to her, his eyes flashing dangerously. "You want to tell me how to do my job, Wilson?" Emma backed off, feeling everyone's eyes on her. The rest of the shift was tense, with Frank constantly making snide comments in her direction. At the end of the day, exhausted and stressed, Emma found Liam in the locker room. "Hey," he said gently. "How was the hospital?" Emma broke down in tears, all the tension of the day finally overwhelming her. Liam hugged her, letting her cry on his shoulder. "He said he ran away to protect us," Emma sobbed. "But how is abandoning your family protection?" Liam gently rubbed her back. "Sometimes people make mistakes, thinking they're doing the right thing." Emma pulled away, wiping her eyes. "And now he's dying. And I don't know what to feel." "It's okay not to know," Liam reassured her. "You have time to process all this." Emma nodded, grateful for Liam's understanding. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you right now. Liam smiled. Hey, that's what friends are for. The next morning at the cemetery, Emma stood before Sarah's grave, her heart heavy. The simple tombstone contrasted with the complex emotions she was feeling. Flashbacks of her childhood flooded her mind, Sarah smiling while making pancakes for breakfast, comforting Emma after a nightmare, working tirelessly to support them. I'm sorry, Mom, Emma whispered, touching the cold stone. I should have been there for you. As she stood there, lost in thought, a familiar voice called out, Emma, is that really you? Turning around, Emma saw Margaret, an old friend of her mother's. They embraced, the familiar gesture bringing unexpected comfort. It's been so long, Margaret smiled sadly. Sarah would be so happy to see you here. Emma swallowed hard. I should have come sooner. I just didn't know how to handle everything. Margaret gently squeezed her shoulder. Your mother understood, dear. She always spoke of you with so much pride. Even after I distanced myself, Emma asked, the guilt evident in her voice. Especially then, Margaret replied. She knew you were struggling to find your way. Sarah never lost hope, you know? Not in you, and not in Jack. Emma looked at Margaret surprised. She still hoped he'd come back? Margaret nodded. Until the very end. She always said that one day you'd all be together again. Margaret's words made Emma feel even guiltier for having stayed away. She was about to respond when she noticed a familiar figure approaching. It was Liam. Liam? What are you doing here? Liam smiled shyly. Sorry for showing up like this. I was worried about you and, well, I thought you might need a friend. Emma felt a wave of gratitude. Thank you, Liam. That means a lot. Margaret watched the interaction with a knowing smile. Well, I'll leave you too. Emma, dear, don't be a stranger, okay? After Margaret left, Emma and Liam walked through the cemetery in comfortable silence. How are you feeling? Liam finally asked. Emma sighed. Honestly, lost, guilty, confused, all at once? Liam took her hand, squeezing it gently. That's understandable. You're dealing with a lot. Emma felt tears forming. I should have been there for her, Liam. And now it's too late. Liam pulled her into a hug, letting her cry on his shoulder. Hey, don't say that. Your mom knew you loved her. That's what matters. As they started to walk away, Emma noticed a cardboard box next to the grave. What's this? Oh, Liam said. I brought it. Margaret mentioned there were some things your mom wanted you to have. Emma carefully opened the box, finding old photos, letters, and a worn-out journal. She opened the journal, her eyes scanning the pages. Liam, she whispered, look at this. The journal entries revealed Sarah's enduring love for Jack, even after years of his absence. Sarah had written about her unwavering belief that one day the family would be reunited. Emma closed the journal, feeling emotionally drained. She never gave up on him, even after everything. Liam hugged her again. Her love for you both was unconditional. That's something rare and precious. Back at the airport, Emma felt more grounded but still uncertain about how to deal with Jack. Her thoughts were interrupted when Claire approached, looking concerned. Emma, can I talk to you for a minute? Emma nodded, feeling guilty. Of course, Claire. What's wrong? Claire hesitated. It's about Frank. He's been acting strange lately. More irritable, secretive. Have you noticed anything at work? Emma's stomach turned. She knew the truth, but how could she tell Claire? I'm not sure, Emma stammered. Things have been a little tense around here lately. Claire studied her for a moment. Emma, if you know something, please tell me. I can handle the truth, whatever it is. Emma opened her mouth, ready to confess everything when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Frank. Emergency meeting. Now. Critical security operation. Sorry, Claire, Emma said, feeling torn. I have to go. Can we talk later? Claire nodded, though she looked disappointed. Emma rushed to the meeting room, her heart heavy with secrets and unresolved conflicts. As she entered the room, Emma saw Frank at the front, his face serious. Everyone, we have a situation. A major security operation is about to take place, and we need to be ready. The airport was on high alert. Frank gathered his team, including Emma, for an emergency operation. A severe storm is approaching quickly, Frank announced, his face tense. We need to evacuate the airport and ensure everyone's safety. Emma felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She watched Frank give out orders, noticing how he avoided her gaze. Wilson, you'll coordinate the evacuation of the main terminal, Frank ordered. Keep everyone calm and organize the exit. Emma nodded, swallowing her discomfort. She didn't trust Frank, but she knew the passenger's safety had to come first. As she headed to her post, Emma saw Liam. He pulled her aside. Be careful, he whispered. Something doesn't feel right about this operation. Emma agreed, her gut telling her the same thing. Keep your eyes open, she replied. The next few hours were chaotic. Emma directed frightened passengers, organized lines, and coordinated with other teams. Her radio crackled constantly with updates about the approaching storm. Suddenly, Frank appeared by her side. Wilson, I need you to check the baggage claim area. There may be passengers lost in there. Emma hesitated. Shouldn't we focus on the main evacuation? Frank shook his head. There's no time for discussions. Go now. Reluctantly, Emma headed to the baggage claim. As soon as she entered, she knew something was off. There were no lost passengers, just stacks of boxes. Frank, I don't see anyone here, she said over the radio. Silence. Emma was about to leave when she heard voices. Hiding behind some boxes, she saw Frank enter with an unknown man. The documents are here, Frank whispered, opening a box. No one suspects a thing. Emma's heart raced. Frank was involved in something shady, and she had just witnessed it. Before she could process what she'd seen, her radio crackled. Attention all units. The storm has intensified. Immediate evacuation. Emma ran out of the baggage area, her mind spinning from what she had just uncovered. When she reached the terminal, she was met with chaos. In the middle of the commotion stood Jack, arguing heatedly with a security guard. I need to talk to my daughter, Jack shouted. Emma Wilson, she works here. Emma froze, torn between her duty and the shock of seeing her father there. Frank arrived out of breath. What's going on here? This man is causing a disturbance, the security guard explained. He says he's an employee's father. Frank looked from Jack to Emma, his eyes narrowing. Wilson, do you know this man? Emma hesitated, feeling the weight of all the eyes on her. Yes, she finally admitted. He's my father. A murmur ran through the crowd. Frank looked furious. Get him out of here, he ordered the security guard. Wait, Emma intervened. Let me talk to him. Frank hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. Emma pulled Jack aside, aware of the curious stares. What are you doing here? She hissed. Jack looked desperate. Emma, I had to see you. After our talk at the hospital, I realized I can't waste any more time. Emma felt a mix of anger and compassion. This isn't the time, Dad. We're in the middle of an emergency evacuation. I know, Jack said, sounding regretful. But I need you to know, I'm sorry for everything. I want to make things right if you'll give me a chance. Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes. Dad, Her response was cut off by a deafening crash. The lights flickered and the building shook with the force of the storm. Everyone, stay calm, she shouted, trying to organize the evacuation. Amid the confusion, Emma saw Frank running toward the baggage claim area. Without thinking, she followed him. "Frank, what are you doing?" He turned, surprised. "Wilson, get back to your post." But Emma didn't back down. "What's really going on? I saw you in the baggage claim earlier. What are you hiding?" Frank paled. "You don't understand. I had no choice." Before Emma could respond, an even louder crash shook the building. Part of the ceiling collapsed, separating them. When the dust settled, Emma stood up, coughing. Frank had disappeared. She looked around, disoriented, and saw Jack running toward her. "Emma, are you okay?" he shouted, helping her to her feet. Emma nodded, still dazed. "Dad, you need to get out of here. It's dangerous." Jack shook his head. "I'm not leaving you again." At that moment, sirens blared. Rescue teams were flooding the airport. Emma knew the next few hours would be critical. She looked at Jack, then at the chaos around her. The operation had ended in disaster. Frank was missing, and she was caught in the middle of it all with the father who had just re-entered her life. Emma took a deep breath, knowing that the decisions she made now would shape not only her professional future, but also her relationship with Jack and her own integrity. "Let's go," she finally said. "We need to help the others." The day after the storm dawned in chaos at the airport. Debris was scattered everywhere, flights were canceled, and frustrated passengers created a challenging scene. Emma, determined to restore order, took charge. "Team, I know last night was tough, but our passengers need us," Emma said, gathering the staff. "Let's focus on cleaning the main areas and getting essential operations back up." Her decisive attitude didn't go unnoticed. Colleagues who had once seen her as just another employee now watched her with growing respect. As she coordinated the cleanup of the main terminal, Emma spotted a familiar figure helping move debris. It was Jack, her father, working alongside the airport staff. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Emma asked, surprised. Jack gave a tired smile. "I thought you all could use an extra hand. Plus, I wanted to make sure you were okay." Emma felt a mix of gratitude and confusion. This man, who had been a stranger just days ago, was now here, helping without being asked. "Thanks," she said simply before returning to work. Throughout the day, Emma noticed Jack interacting with other staff, sharing stories and offering words of encouragement. She couldn't help but notice how different he seemed from the man who had abandoned her years ago. As the recovery progressed, rumors of an internal investigation started circulating. Emma overheard whispers about questions surrounding Frank and some questionable decisions during the crisis. Liam approached Emma during a break. "Hey, did you hear? Sounds like Frank's in trouble." Emma nodded, recalling the scene she had witnessed in the storage room. "I'm not surprised. He was acting strange throughout the entire evacuation. There's more." Liam lowered his voice. "I've been helping with the accounting and found some discrepancies in the financial reports. Things that don't add up." Emma felt a knot in her stomach. "What kind of discrepancies?" "Unjustified expenses, suspicious contracts. Nothing conclusive, but enough to raise red flags." Before Emma could respond, she was called into an emergency meeting. As she entered the room, she sensed the tense atmosphere. Frank was there, looking nervous, along with other directors and a man she recognized from Human Resources. "Ms. Wilson," the HR man began, "we want to thank you for your efforts during and after the crisis. Your leadership was remarkable." Emma thanked him, sensing there was more to come. "However, we are conducting an investigation into the decisions made during the evacuation. We'd like to hear your account of the events." Emma glanced at Frank, who avoided her gaze. She knew that what she said could have serious consequences. "Of course," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Where should I start? As Emma detailed the events of the previous night, leaving out what she had seen in the storage room for the time being, she noticed Frank growing increasingly agitated. After the meeting, Emma left feeling drained, both physically and emotionally. Jack was waiting for her in the hallway. Is everything okay? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Emma hesitated. Part of her wanted to share her fears and suspicions, but another part still struggled to trust this man who had suddenly reappeared in her life. It's complicated, she finally replied. Jack nodded, understanding. I know I don't have the right to ask for your trust, Emma, but I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what happens. Emma felt tears welling up. The sincerity in Jack's words was palpable. Thank you, Dad, she said softly. At that moment, Liam appeared, looking anxious. Emma, we need to talk. It's about those financial reports. Emma looked from Liam to Jack, feeling the weight of her responsibilities and the conflicting relationships. Go, Jack said gently. It sounds important. I'll be here if you need me. Emma nodded, grateful for Jack's understanding. Following Liam, she knew she was about to dive deeper into the complexities at the airport. What did you find? Emma asked as soon as they were alone. Liam showed her a series of documents. Look at this. Years of unjustified expenses, contracts with shell companies. Frank's been cooking the books for a long time. Emma felt her world spinning. The implications were enormous. Before she could fully process it, her phone rang. It was from Human Resources. Ms. Wilson? We need you to give a formal statement tomorrow regarding recent events and Mr. Frank's management. Emma hung up, feeling the weight of the situation. She looked at Liam, then at the documents in her hands. What are we going to do? Liam asked. Emma took a deep breath. We're going to do the right thing, no matter the cost. Emma entered the meeting room, her heart pounding. The investigation committee was already seated, their serious faces staring at her. Frank was there too, his expression a mix of fear and pleading. Ms. Wilson, please tell us about the events on the night of the storm, the lead investigator began. Emma took a deep breath. During the evacuation, I noticed some irregularities in Mr. Frank's orders. As she spoke, Emma felt the weight of her words. Every sentence could have serious consequences, not just for Frank, but for the entire airport. Suddenly, a memory flashed through her mind. She was 8 years old, and Jack was taking her for a walk in the park. Emma, sweetheart, Jack would say, always tell the truth, no matter how hard it is. Back in the present, Emma continued her testimony, detailing what she saw in the storage room and Frank's questionable orders. After the session, Emma walked out exhausted. Jack was waiting for her in the hallway. How did it go? He asked gently. Emma hesitated. It was tough, but I did the right thing. Jack smiled, proud. You've always been strong, Emma, just like your mother. Another memory surfaced. Emma, 10 years old, crying because Jack had missed her school performance. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Work, it's complicated, he had said, looking genuinely sorry. Emma shook her head, snapping back to the present. Why did you always put work first? Jack sighed. I thought I was doing the best for our family. I realized too late that I was wrong. Before Emma could respond, Liam appeared. Emma, we found more. You need to see this. Emma looked at Jack. I need to go. Go. I'll be here if you need me, Jack replied, understanding. Emma followed Liam into a small room filled with files and computers. Look at this, Liam pointed to the screen. Years of suspicious transactions. Frank has been funneling funds into offshore accounts. Emma felt her stomach churn. How much? Millions, Liam replied in a low voice. And there's more. Overpriced contracts, bribes. It's a huge scheme. Emma closed her eyes, remembering all the times Frank had talked about integrity and ethics. How could she have been so blind? "We need to take this to the committee," Emma said, determined. Liam nodded. "It's going to be tough. Frank has many powerful allies." "It doesn't matter," Emma replied. "It's the right thing to do." As they worked, compiling evidence, Emma remembered another moment with Jack. She was 12, and he was teaching her to ride a bike. "Don't be afraid to fall, Emma," he would say. "The important thing is to always get up and try again." That memory gave Emma a new perspective on Jack. Maybe he wasn't the perfect father, but he tried in his own way. Hours passed. Emma and Liam dug deep into the investigation, uncovering layer after layer of corruption. "How did no one notice this before?" Emma asked, frustrated. Liam sighed. "Frank was smart. He kept everyone busy, distracted. No one looked too closely." Emma felt a mix of anger and determination growing inside her. "Well, now we're looking, and we're going to expose all of it." When they finally finished, it was late at night. Emma left the room, exhausted but resolute. In the hallway, she came face to face with Frank. "Wilson," he said, his voice a mix of anger and fear. "We need to talk." Emma crossed her arms. "We have nothing to talk about, Frank. Everything will be handled through the official investigation." Frank stepped closer, threatening. "Do you really want to go down this road? Remember that incident 2 years ago with the VIP passenger? Do you think your career will survive if that comes to light?" Emma felt a chill run down her spine. The incident Frank was referring to was an honest mistake, but it could easily be twisted to look like serious negligence. "Are you threatening me?" Emma asked, her voice trembling slightly. Frank smiled without humor. "I'm offering you a way out. Step away from the investigation and we all come out of this clean." Emma hesitated. Her career, everything she had worked for, was on the line. But then, she remembered Jack's words about integrity, the lessons he had tried to teach her. "No, Frank," she said finally, her voice steady. "Do whatever you want. I'm not stepping away." Frank narrowed his eyes. "You'll regret this, Wilson." Emma had spent the entire night wide awake, Frank's words echoing in her mind. The threat of exposing her past mistake weighed heavily on her, making her question every decision. In the morning, she arrived at the airport earlier than usual. The building, normally full of life, felt oppressive. In her office, Emma stared at the pile of evidence against Frank, her future balancing precariously on those documents. Liam walked in, interrupting her thoughts. "Emma, are you okay? You look like you haven't slept." "Frank threatened me last night," she admitted. "He knows about the incident with the VIP passenger." Liam frowned. "That wasn't your fault. It was an honest mistake." "Yes, but in the wrong hands." Emma left the sentence unfinished. "What are you going to do?" Liam asked, his voice gentle but firm. Emma sighed. "I don't know. If I expose Frank, my career could end. But if I stay quiet, you wouldn't be the Emma I know," Liam finished. At that moment, Emma's phone rang. It was Jack. "Emma, can you come pick me up? I'm not feeling well." Jack's voice sounded weak. Emma's heart raced. "Of course, Dad. I'm on my way." Hanging up, she looked at Liam. "I need to go. Jack isn't feeling well." Liam nodded. "Go. I'll handle things here." On her way to Jack's apartment, Emma couldn't stop thinking about how quickly her life had become complicated. Just a few weeks ago, Jack was nothing but a distant memory. Now, she found herself worried about his health. When she arrived at the building, Emma found Jack sitting on the front steps, pale and short of breath. "Dad, what happened?" she asked, helping him to his feet. "Just a bit of dizziness," Jack replied, trying to smile. "Nothing to worry about." At the hospital, while they waited for the test results, Jack looked at Emma with tired eyes. "I'm sorry for this, honey. I know you've got a lot to deal with at work." Emma felt a lump in her throat. "Don't worry about that, Dad. Your health is more important." Jack took her hand. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you. About the past. About why I left." Emma braced herself, years of unanswered questions hanging between them. "I didn't leave just because of the debts," Jack began. "There were dangerous people after me. I feared for your safety and your mother's." Emma felt tears welling up. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" "I thought I was protecting you by staying away," Jack replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "But I realized too late that what you really needed was for me to be there." As Jack spoke, Emma began to see her father in a new light. The absences, the broken promises all took on new meaning. "Even from a distance, I tried to take care of you," Jack continued. "I sent money anonymously, made sure you were safe." Emma recalled the mysterious checks that arrived when they needed them most, the strangers who showed up to help in difficult situations. "That was you?" she asked, incredulous. Jack nodded. "I wanted to do more, but I was afraid of putting you both in danger." A doctor entered, cutting the moment short. "Mr. Wilson, we need to run a few more tests. It seems your heart is weaker than we thought." As Jack was taken away, Emma was left alone with her thoughts. Jack's revelation had changed everything. She had always seen him as the man who abandoned them, but now she realized he had made sacrifices she never imagined. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Frank is pushing for a meeting tomorrow. We need to decide what to do with the evidence." Emma closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her choices. On one side, her career and security. On the other, truth and justice. Looking out of the hospital window, Emma watched families coming and going, lives intertwined in moments of joy and sorrow. She thought about Jack, his silent sacrifices, and how he had tried in his imperfect way to do the right thing. With a deep breath, Emma made her decision. She couldn't let Frank's actions go unpunished. No matter the personal consequences, she knew what she had to do. Emma typed a reply to Liam. "Let's expose everything. It's time for Frank to face the consequences." As soon as she hit send, Emma felt a mixture of fear and relief. She knew the road ahead would be tough, but she also knew it was the right one. At that moment, a nurse rushed toward her, looking alarmed. "Miss Wilson? It's your father. He's had a complication. We need you immediately." Emma's heart raced. She had just made a decision that could change her professional life, and now her personal life seemed to be unraveling too. Running through the hospital corridors, Emma felt the weight of all her choices past and present pressing down on her. She had decided to face Frank, but now feared that time with her father might be running out. Reaching the emergency room, Emma saw a medical team working frantically around Jack. Her father, who had seemed to be improving just moments ago, was now fighting for his life. Emma froze at the door, unable to move, her mind a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts. She knew that the next few hours would be critical, not only for Jack's health, but for her own future. Emma spent the night at the hospital, watching Jack's heart monitor fluctuate. The hours dragged on, each beep of the machine a reminder of life's fragility. At dawn, Jack opened his eyes. "Emma?" His voice was weak but clear. Emma leaned in, holding her father's hand. "I'm here, Dad." Jack tried to sit up, but Emma gently stopped him. "Don't strain yourself. You need to rest." "No," Jack insisted. "I need to tell you everything, while I still have time." Emma felt a lump in her throat but nodded. "I'm listening." Jack began to speak, his voice gaining strength with each word. He told her about the debts that led him to get involved with dangerous people, the threats he received, and the fear he felt for Emma and her mother. "I thought leaving was the only way to keep you both safe," Jack explained, tears in his eyes. "But every day away from you was torture." Emma listened, feeling years of anger and hurt dissolve. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" "I was afraid they'd come after you if they knew we were in contact," Jack replied. "So I watched from a distance, doing what I could to help without being noticed." Jack spoke about the jobs he secretly found for Emma, the times he intervened to keep her safe without her knowing. "That day in the park when you were 10 and almost got hit by a car," Jack said. "It wasn't a coincidence I was there to save you." Emma gasped, remembering the incident. "That was you? I always thought it was a stranger." Jack nodded. "I was never really far away, Emma. I always tried to protect you, even from a distance." Tears flowed freely now from both Emma and Jack. Years of misunderstandings and unresolved pain were finally being put to rest. "I'm so sorry, Dad," Emma sobbed. "I spent so much time angry, not understanding." Jack squeezed her hand. "No, sweetheart. I'm the one who's sorry. I should have found a better way. I should have trusted you and your mother." In that moment, Emma felt the weight of years of resentment lift. She saw her father not as the man who abandoned them, but as someone who, despite his mistakes, had always tried to protect her. "I forgive you, Dad," Emma said softly. "And I hope you can forgive me too." Jack smiled, peace in his eyes. "There's nothing to forgive, my dear. You've always been my pride." As father and daughter reconciled, Emma's phone rang insistently. It was Liam. "Emma, you need to come back to the airport. The investigation into Frank has reached a critical point." Emma hesitated, looking at Jack. He nodded, understanding. "Go. Do what you need to do. I'll be here when you get back." At the airport, Emma was met by a chaotic scene. Reporters crowded the entrance as police escorted Frank out of the building. Liam rushed to her. "The evidence we gathered was enough. Frank is being arrested for fraud and corruption." Emma watched the scene, conflicting emotions stirring in her chest. Relief that the truth had come to light, but also a pang of sadness at the disgraceful end of someone she once respected. "The extent of the corruption is shocking," Liam continued. "Years of embezzlement, bribes, fraudulent contracts. It's all coming to light now." Emma nodded, absorbing the information. "What about the airport? What happens now?" "The board is meeting to discuss the next steps," Liam replied. "They want to talk to you. Your integrity throughout this whole situation hasn't gone unnoticed." Emma felt a mix of pride and apprehension. She knew the days ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face them. After hours of meetings and statements, Emma finally made it back to the hospital. When she entered Jack's room, she found him sleeping peacefully. Sitting by his bedside, Emma reflected on the events of the past few days. The reconciliation with Jack, Frank's downfall, the revelations about her past, it all seemed surreal. Jack slowly opened his eyes. "You're back," he smiled. Emma took his hand. "Of course. How was the airport?" Jack asked. Emma told him about Frank's arrest and the revelations about the corruption. Jack listened intently, pride evident in his eyes. "You did the right thing, Emma," he said. "I always knew you'd be strong enough to face injustice." Emma felt tears welling up. "I learned from the best, Dad." Jack smiled, but Emma noticed his grip on her hand was weakening. "I'm tired, sweetheart," he said softly. Emma felt a tightness in her chest. "Rest, Dad. I'll be here." Jack closed his eyes, his breathing slowing. "I'm proud of you, Emma. Always have been." As Jack drifted off to sleep, Emma was overcome with emotions. Gratitude for the reconciliation, sadness for the lost time, but also a sense of peace and closure. Jack's heart monitor began to slow. Emma called for the nurses, but deep down, she knew. It was time to say goodbye. Holding Jack's hand, Emma whispered, "I love you, Dad. Thank you for everything." With one final soft breath, Jack passed peacefully, a slight smile on his lips. Emma sat there, silent tears streaming down her face. She had lost her father again, but this time, with understanding, forgiveness, and love. Looking out the hospital window, Emma saw the sun rising. A new day was beginning, bringing with it challenges and opportunities. With a heavy heart, but strengthened by Jack's love and lessons, Emma knew she was ready to face whatever came next. Her phone buzzed. It was from the airport. Life went on, and Emma had a new path ahead, inspired by her father's legacy and forged by her own brave choices. 2 weeks after Jack's passing, Emma returned to the airport. The atmosphere had changed drastically. Where there had once been tension and suspicion, now there was a sense of anticipation and renewal. Liam greeted her in the main lobby. "Welcome back," he said with a warm smile. "Everyone's waiting for you in the conference room." As Emma entered the room, she was surprised by the spontaneous applause from her colleagues. The new interim director, Mr. Anderson, approached her. "Emma, your integrity and courage during the crisis were exemplary," he began. "We'd like to invite you to lead a special task force. Our goal is to completely overhaul the airport's security practices." Emma felt a wave of emotion. I'm honored. Thank you for your trust." In the weeks that followed, Emma threw herself into her work. She spent hours reviewing protocols, interviewing staff, and developing new strategies. Throughout the process, she often found herself thinking about Jack and the lessons he had tried to teach her. "We need a training program that not only teaches procedures, but also values," Emma explained during a meeting. "Integrity, compassion, vigilance, these are the foundations of real security." Liam, who had become her right-hand man on the task force, nodded in agreement. "That reminds me of something you mentioned about your father," he commented. Emma smiled, recalling the conversations with Jack in the hospital. "Yes, he always said that true strength comes from doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." As the new program took shape, Emma realized that she was not only reforming the airport, but also honoring Jack's legacy. The court case against Frank was progressing, and Emma was called to testify. Sitting on the witness stand, she faced her former boss with a mix of pity and determination. "Mr. Frank abused his position of trust," Emma declared firmly. "His actions not only hurt the airport financially, but also undermined the trust of every employee." After her testimony, Emma found Liam waiting outside the courtroom. "You were amazing in there," he said, taking her hand. Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. Over the past few months, her relationship with Liam had evolved from colleagues to something deeper. She was still navigating these new waters, but for the first time in a long while, she felt open to the possibility of a shared future. Back at the airport, Emma watched with satisfaction as the changes unfolded. Employees who once seemed unmotivated now approached their tasks with renewed enthusiasm. "It's incredible to see the difference," remarked Sarah, a veteran security officer. "I feel like we're finally making a real impact." Emma nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "Each of us has the power to make a difference. That's what we're building here." As the new training program was implemented, Emma began to see tangible results. Security incidents decreased, passenger satisfaction increased, and employee morale was at an all-time high. One day, while walking through the terminal, Emma overheard a conversation between two passengers. "This airport has changed so much," one of them said. "I really feel safe here now." The other agreed. "And the staff is so attentive. It's like they genuinely care." Emma smiled to herself, knowing that every small change was making a big difference. On a quiet afternoon, Emma found herself in Frank's old office, now transformed into a training center. Looking out the window, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Liam entered silently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" Emma turned, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "How much everything has changed. How much I've changed." Liam gently embraced her. "You've done something amazing here, Emma. Jack would be proud." Emma nodded, feeling a mixture of longing and gratitude. "I just wish he could see it." "He does," Liam assured her. "Through you, through every life you touch here." In that moment, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. She had found a balance between honoring the past and building the future. Jack's legacy lived on through her actions, and she was determined to keep making a difference. In the months that followed, Emma continued to lead with compassion and integrity. She implemented mentoring programs, encouraging senior staff to guide newcomers. She established open communication channels across all levels of the organization, ensuring that every voice was heard. One day, during an award ceremony, Emma was called to the stage. Mr. Anderson smiled as he handed her an Excellence in Leadership award. "Emma Wilson has transformed not only our procedures, but our culture," he announced. "She reminded us that security is not just about rules, but about people." As she accepted the award, Emma looked out into the audience. She saw smiling faces, eyes filled with respect and admiration. She saw Liam, her constant support, smiling proudly. And for a moment, she swore she saw Jack, standing at the back of the room, nodding in approval. "This award isn't just mine," Emma said into the microphone. "It belongs to all of us. Every person who chooses to do the right thing, who genuinely cares, who works to make this place better every day." As the audience applauded, Emma felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had turned the pain of her past into a future filled with purpose. The airport, once a symbol of conflict and corruption, now represented hope and integrity. Emma knew that there would always be new challenges ahead, but now, strengthened by Jack's lessons, Liam's support, and her own inner strength, she was ready to face them. With a determined smile, Emma looked toward the future, ready to continue her journey of transformation, one day at a time. I hope this story touched your heart and inspired you as much as it inspired us to create it. If you were moved by Emma, Jack, and Liam's journey, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion is valuable to us, and we'd love to know what other stories you'd like to hear. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one. Remember, as Emma discovered, sometimes our greatest trials can become our greatest strengths.